Hello and welcome to week 11 of my Beachcombing Blanket crochet along. I'm Eleonora, the designer behind Coastal Crochet, and all the details about this blanket can be found over on my blog. The links are in the description below. So in week 11 we begin to make the edging for our blankets, and it's 4 rounds in total that we're making this week. So that's 3 rounds in the blue colour, which is yarn D, and 1 round in the creamy white colour, which was yarn C. So I will show you how to do this. Remember, I use UK crochet terminology. I do try to translate as we go along, and also to have the written pattern next to you as we work through this tutorial. So the first round of our blanket edging is a simple round of double crochet US single crochet stitches, and when we're going across the top and the bottom of the blanket, it's quite straightforward because we're simply going to be working 1 double crochet US single crochet in each of the stitches. It's when we're going along the sides of the top and bottom panels into the sides of the rows where we need to really make sure that we're doing the right amount of stitches so that we get a nice even piece of edging. When we get to the side panels, which were our shells, then here we have the stitches that we're going to be going into. So again, it's more straightforward going along these panels. So I'll show you how to get started. And looking at the pattern for round 1, it says with right side facing, so make sure that the right side of the blanket is facing towards you. Join yarn D to the outer right stitch to the top or bottom of the blanket. So when you look at the blanket, it's the very outer right stitch to the top or bottom, and insert your hook into that outer right stitch like so, and join with yarn D. Now make 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and we're going to do 3 double crochet US single crochet all into that same stitch, because this is going to be the first corner of our edging. So 1, 2 and 3. So that is our first corner. Now you might want to put a stitch marker in this very central stitch, the second stitch we've made, because on subsequent rounds that is the stitch where we're going to be doing 3 stitches into to keep creating our corner. So it might be an idea to put a little stitch marker in that stitch now. And looking at the pattern, it's now 1 double crochet in each stitch across. Double crochet is US single crochet. So just go all the way across this top or bottom panel, depending what way up your blanket is, and just go all the way across with 1 double crochet US single crochet in each stitch. So I'm nearly at the other side, gone right across the top of the blanket, and in the final stitch of the side we're going to be crocheting 3 double crochet US single crochet stitches. So 1, 2 and 3. So that's our second corner, and again you might want to put a stitch marker into that second stitch. I'll show you what I mean. Just pop a stitch marker into the second stitch we've just made of those 3 going into the corner like so, because then that is clearly to be seen as the stitch that we're going to be crocheting 3 into on the next round. So we'll move on now down to the sides of the blanket. So looking down the side of the blanket that we're going to be crocheting into, it's really important here just to be consistent with how many stitches you do into each side of the rows. And as a rule, we're going to be doing 1 double crochet US single crochet into the side of the rows which were made up of double crochet US single crochet stitches, and also those rows that were made up of half treble US half double crochet stitches. We're going to be doing 2 stitches, so 2 double crochet US single crochet stitches into the sides of the rows that were made up of treble US double crochet stitches, and we're going to be doing 3 double crochet US single crochet stitches around the sides of the rows which ended with a double treble US treble stitch. So I'll show you what I mean. So looking across the sides of the blanket, the first row to crochet into the side of is this one here. This was made up of double crochet, US single crochet stitches, and so into that row around the post of that final stitch we're going to work 1 double crochet, US single crochet. The next row, this is where it was a treble US double crochet at the start and end of the row. So in the side of this row we're going to do 2 double crochet US single crochet stitches, and we can spread these evenly across the stitch, and we're going around the post of the final stitch of those rows. The next row, this one here, was a row of double crochet US single crochet stitches, so we'll just do 1 in the side of that row. And the white row here, that was also a double crochet US single crochet stitch we were ending with, and so we'll do 1 stitch into the side of that row. And then here, these were half trebles, so we're just going to do 1 double crochet US single crochet into the side of that row. If you've got any ends to weave in, you can weave some of them in by crocheting around them now. The orange row, that was double crochet US single crochet, so we'll just do 1 into the side of that row. The next row was a row of half treble stitches, so we just do 1 stitch into the end of that row, and then we had 2 rows of double crochet US single crochet stitches, so again we just do 1 stitch in each side of those rows. And now we have our tall double treble US treble stitch that we ended and started this row on, and so we do 3 around there, and again you can space them evenly across the side of the row. So there we can do our first one, and then here we can do 2. So there's 3 stitches in total going around the side of that row. And so looking back, you can see here how we've got a consistent edge and a good number of stitches going across. And so now we're at the edge of the puff stitch wave rows, and remember each of the colours that you see was made up of 2 rows, a row of treble US double crochet stitches and a row of double crochet US single crochet stitches. So across each colour we're going to be doing 3 double crochet US single crochet stitches, but it's really important to spread these evenly across these 2 rows. So we'll do 1 stitch around the double crochet US single crochet row, and remember these treble stitches US double crochet in the puff stitch wave rows, we were doing 2 stitches together, so when you're going around the end of these rows, do 1 stitch into this gap here like so, and then 1 stitch in here, and that just gives it a lovely consistent even sort of stitch count going across. And repeat that for all of the sides of the puff stitch wave rows. So 1, 2, and in here 3, and again 1, 2, and 3, and you can just see it gives a lovely consistent evenly spaced edging. So keep doing that across these remaining puff stitch wave rows. Here's the final one. 1, 2, and 3. So we've gone evenly across the edge of those puff stitch wave rows. And now we have these rows here to go around the side of, and for each of these rows, the 2 green and the 2 blue, we're going to do 1 stitch in the side of each of these rows. So 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then this was the very first row where we joined onto our side panels. The top or bottom panels were attached onto these side panels. Just do 1 in the side of that very first row. And now we're onto the side panels. So here we have actual stitches to crochet into going across. So just locate the very first stitch of the side panels. There it is. And now just crochet 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each stitch across. So when you've gone all the way across the side panel with 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each stitch across, remember that there were 161 stitches in the final rows of the side panels, and the first stitch of that final row would have been a 3 chain, which counted as a treble. So do remember to go into that when you're going around with your edging. It might not be obvious here, it's quite obvious, that 3 chain. It might not be obvious, so you can just do a stitch into a gap or just find somewhere, but just make sure you've got 161 stitches going across these side panels. So here we are now at the beginning of these sides of the rows from the top and bottom panels. So we're going to mirror exactly what we did at the start of this side edge of the blanket, and mirror that going back up to the other end. So here we have these first 4 rows, and we're just going to be doing 1 double crochet, US single crochet in each of those row ends into the sides of those rows. Here's the green one. And then here we are now at the, after this stitch, we are now at the puff stitch wave side edges again. So remember, it's going to be 3 stitches into each of the coloured waves, 2 for the treble US double crochet rows and 1 for the double crochet US single crochet rows, but do space them evenly. So put your first stitch there, your second stitch into this little single space here, and then your third stitch into the side of the row there, and repeat that on all of the puff stitch wave row ends. So 1 there, 1 there, and then 1 there, and you can see they're evenly spaced. So carry on to the end of the puff stitch wave rows. And if you look back, we've got a nice consistent stitches going across the edges of those rows. So now we're into the final parts of the top and bottom panel. This first stitch was a double treble, US treble. So we do 3 around the side of this row, 1, 2, and 3. You can space them out evenly, and then it's 1 around each of the next 3 row ends, 1, 2, 3, and that's 1 on the side of the next row, and 1 each around the sides of the next 3 rows, 1 and 2, this final blue row, and 3. Now at the side of the treble US double crochet stitch, so 1, 2, and then 1 double crochet US single crochet around this row here. And at this point we now turn the work and go straight into the very first stitch of the side to the top or bottom panel. So just insert your hook into that stitch and work 3 double crochet US single crochet, because this will be our next corner. And again, you might want to put a stitch marker into this stitch, because that's one where we're going to be doing 3 in on the subsequent rounds. So really important to mark that stitch. And now we're at the top of the opposite end of the blanket. So now repeat exactly what we've done, exactly what we've just done, going across the first top of the blanket and then down the first side. Repeat all of that again here. Just coming to the end of the round, I've gone all the way around the blanket with these double crochet US single crochet stitches, and here's the last row edge to crochet into. And so now we're back at the beginning. We are now slip stitching into the first stitch of the round, like so. Now this corner stitch, the stitch that we put the stitch marker into, is our corner. So leave that stitch marker in there because we're going to be needing to do 3 stitches into there on this next round. But first, to move on to round 2, we need to turn the work. So having turned the work, we're ready to move on to round 2, and at the beginning of round 2 we make 3 chain, and that counts as the first treble US double crochet stitch of this round. And all round 2 is a simple round of treble US double crochet stitches. We're going to go all the way around with 1 treble US double crochet in each stitch. Much easier now because obviously we're just going into the stitches. The only difference now being that in these corner stitches, so the stitches where we've put a stitch marker, or if you haven't put a stitch marker, just pay attention that it's the corner stitch, the central double crochet US single crochet stitch from round 1 that we did to create the corners. In each of those stitches we're going to be doing 3 treble. Because I've turned the work, we're not ready to go into this corner yet. We're going to end the round with 3 treble US double crochet into that stitch, but we have to go all the way round first. So go all the way round with 1 treble US double crochet stitch in each stitch around. So I'm just coming to the end of round 2. I've gone all the way around with these treble US double crochet stitches, and the very last stitch that I will need to go into, as you can see, is the stitch with the stitch marker in, and so that is our corner stitch. So remove the stitch marker, and then into that corner stitch we do 3 treble US double crochet, and that's our final corner from round 2. You might want to put a stitch marker again into the second stitch, the middle of these 3 that we've done, and then that will make it easy to identify the corner stitch on the next round. And now, because we're joining this round, we slip stitch to the top of the beginning 3 chain to join this round, and that is the end of round 2. And now we turn the work to move on to round 3, and round 3 is a simple round of half treble stitches. So we begin by making 2 chain, and then we are simply doing 1 half treble US half double crochet in each stitch around. So there's the first one, and then straight away we're at the corner stitch because we've turned the work this time. So you can now remove that stitch marker and now work 3 half treble into that corner stitch. 1, 2 and 3, and then you can put a stitch marker into the second of those 3 stitches because that is then the corner stitch, and continue all the way round with 1 half treble US half double crochet in each stitch, and in the corner stitches we work 3 stitches. So I'm just at the end of round 3. I've gone all the way around the blanket with these half treble US half double crochet stitches, and to end the round we do a slip stitch into the top of that beginning 2 chain to join, and at the end of round 3, when we've used the colour yarn D, we fasten off. So the rest of the blanket is now made with the right side facing us at all times. We don't turn the work anymore. So having fastened off at the end of round 3, we now move on to round 4 with the right side of the blanket facing, and we are going to join with yarn C into any stitch. Doesn't matter where, just join yarn C to any stitch. Because round 3 was a round of half treble, US half double crochet stitches, we're going to leave this front strand to the front of the work, and so we're going to be crocheting into these back 2 strands only. We did this in the squares towards the beginning of this blanket crochet along, leaving that front strand and just crocheting into those back 2. So join yarn C to any stitch, ready to work round 4. And round 4 is a simple round of double crochet US single crochet stitches. So we make 1 chain at the beginning of the round. That doesn't count as a stitch, and so what we're simply doing now is working 1 double crochet US single crochet in each stitch around, remembering to go into those back 2 strands from the half treble US half double crochet stitches. And by doing that, we just leave that lovely strand to the front, which gives it a nice finish. So carry on all the way around, remembering to do 3 stitches, so 3 double crochet US single crochet into the corner stitches. So I'm just coming to the end of round 4 of the edging. I've gone all the way around with 1 double crochet US single crochet in each stitch, and when we get back to the beginning stitch, we simply do a slip stitch into there, and then we fasten off. And that's the end of week 11. So we've started a simple edging going all the way around the blanket, and next week, the final week of the crochet along, we'll add something a little bit more interesting to finish our blankets off. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thanks for watching.